Welcome to Bleav In 76ers with your hosts, former 76ers point guard Eric Snow and two Sixers fanatics in Marcus and Teja Dash. Bleav In 76ers is presented by BetOnline.AG.
BetOnline is your number one source for all your sports betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use promo code Bleav for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Bleav In 76ers podcast. I'm Marcus Dash, here with legendary 76ers point guard Eric Snow and my brother Teja Dash. Not a lot going on in the Sixers world, but there was news this week. Montrezl Harrell tore his ACL and will be out for the season. I think doing off-season workouts is what happened. I think that's what the injury stems from. But apparently the Sixers will not be trading him. They want to attach him to as far as a future asset in a trade down the line here. But do you think that means we could be bringing on another big man? I know we talked about the amount of big mans that we had on the team already. That we could bring on another one, or
it's possible. It's possible.
This was factoring if Harrell was actually going to play, which I don't know. We don't know if he was or not. So it might just be more minutes for Bamba.
It's possible. So we never know how it's going to play out with other guys. You may bring back a guy.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. I mean, as far as like the whole workouts, because I know like with the NFL they have like the NFI. So if you get hurt doing stuff that's like away from the team activities, you can get put on like the NFI thing. Do they have something like that similar in the NBA?
No. I think it was when I played, it was a love for the game clause. If you had that in there, you can work out and play basketball at your leisure. So yeah, if they still have that, that's what that was. So you can work out, play basketball without restriction, and not worry about getting injured and getting your contract voided.
Interesting. He was involved in the Drew League, I believe. He was on one of the teams in that whole thing. It looked like he was having a good offseason too. He looked good in that Drew League. I know you're not playing against all professionals in those, but I mean he looked pretty good in that. Too bad. So a short show. We got a short show for you guys tonight. So obviously, with not a lot going on in the Sixers world, people are starting to talk about moves of the past. And there's been a lot of talk this week about the bad moves of the Sixers process era. So everyone Sixers Twitter has been kind of weighing in on different things they've seen over the years, and everyone's talking about which one they thought was the worst move. But if you could change one move from the past, which would you choose? I got the four that were most mentioned online. Okay, so choosing Ben Simmons over Brandon Ingram, handling Fultz differently, now whether it be drafting him or that be his whole shooting woes that he had in the yips, not trading Jimmy Butler, trading Zaire Smith for Mikal Bridges, trading Drew Holiday for Nerlens Noel, which jump-started the process, and then signing Tobias Harris to his deal. Which of these moves would you, if you could take out one, would be the one you take out from the past 8 years, I guess?
Well, when you say Fultz, can you talk about what actually really happened?
Please.
Didn't we trade down? Didn't we trade that pick?
We traded down to, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we traded up to one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we could have drafted
Taylor. Yeah. But I heard that we couldn't. Part of that deal was you're trading up to one to take Fultz. That's it.
Which I never really understood that whole thing. I remember reading that, but I never
understand how you can just do that.
Because I mean, imagine if you and I were trading and you were like, "Hey, do you know who you want?" And I'm like, Yeah, I know who I want. Do you want Fultz? No, I don't want Fultz. Okay, I'm worried about the Lakers taking Fultz. Could I trade up to 1? Okay, but you have to take him because we have a guy we want, and we think he'll be there at 3. Okay, deal. You know what I mean? Like something like that.
Yeah, that's what they tell you, but I wouldn't believe that. I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't believe that. I just know how that stuff go. If you can't put that in the trade deal, you can't put that language in there. I don't believe it.
There's also an apparent
unless
deal
unless the language was in that, I don't believe it.
Yeah.
So that would be your number 1 then, obviously, right?
Yes.
Not taking Tatum in number 1. Okay. Yeah. That's a good one. I mean, yeah, that's a good one. I guess that falls under the entire.
It's 2 things because 1, he would be with Philly, and 2, he wouldn't be with Boston.
Yeah. Yep.
And who's been a thorn since he's arrived.
Yep.
Yeah.
Very true. There was also another a rumor deal. We didn't want to put it on here because it wasn't official, but there were always a lot of rumors behind the Sixers were offered a high draft pick for Jahlil Okafor. And the rumors were it was Boston and that pick that eventually would have been, I think, 3 overall. So we could have had 1 and 3 in that draft. So that would have been, we could have got Fultz and could have had Tatum. Imagine that. Yeah, trading. I mean, drafting. We talked about that too. Drafting Jahlil at 3 could have been on there, but we looked at the top 10. The top 10 was pretty rough that year, so there's not many places you really could have gone besides like Porzingis. But you remember back then,
Jahlil coming out of college was a legit pick.
Yeah,
with Embiid though,
but it was just all the other guys that you had there. You had to go a different way.
Yeah.
Coming out,
that would be Porzingis. You could have taken, but Porzingis refused to work out for the Sixers that year. That was a big deal. You could even throw another honorable mention on here and say Doc Rivers throwing Ben Simmons under the bus after the Atlanta series, because that changed a lot of stuff too. That team essentially broke up after that. Like, that was like they were done, right? I mean, they never played together again, really. So,
yeah.
If I had to choose one, I'd undo. I'll give Eric the you can have the Tatum one. I would probably go with Butler because it takes care of a few other things that happened as well, right? So if we gave Butler a massive contract, maybe we would try to play harder ball with Tobias and his deal. Maybe we wouldn't have come to a contract terms. Maybe we'd have to do a sign and trade with Tobias instead. Maybe the Simmons camp would have gotten so upset they demanded a trade, which maybe wouldn't have been a bad thing because his value's at its peak then. We could have gotten a lot for Simmons that year. So they could have, stopped the whole, folding the next season in the Atlanta year. That would have been avoided. That'd probably be my one right there.
My thing is with that is, like, during that time, like, you making moves, but we got one of the best records in the league.
Wait, which one? The Butler season?
We're still one of the best in the league. I'm just talking about from a standpoint of the reason why I said that is because it was a move that was made for a guy that you moved and didn't have success there. And the guy that you could have has had so much success, and at your expense. He's in your division.
I know. Yeah. No, if we're saying the whole Tatum thing, then that's hard. I mean, it's hard to turn down a top 5, top 10 player instead of a guy who didn't.
I mean, he was supposed to be that. Then he had an injury, but I'm just saying, like, it wasn't.
Yeah, Fultz wasn't. He was a top player in the draft.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he was supposed to be like, but it wasn't like there were people that felt Tatum was number 1. Like, that wasn't a surprise that people felt that way. People, there wasn't people saying that y'all should take him.
Mm-hmm.
It was a loaded draft that year. There were a lot of good guys that year. But yeah, I remember the time we were looking for an off-ball guard, a point guard who could also play off-ball, who could shoot off a catch and shoot.
That's what I'm saying. We were looking for a guy that could play off of Ben, and that's the one part I didn't really understand, was because we said we wanted a guy that could be a guard and could play off of Ben, but we got a guard that could play off of Ben, but needed the ball in his hands. Like, I didn't really understand that, because if he had the ball in his hands, then that didn't really help Ben. Like, that's where I felt like, okay, if you have Ben and you want to get a guy on the wing, then Tatum or someone like that fits better.
Yeah.
But to me, when they got Fultz, I took it as if, because I didn't know much about Fultz until they started talking about him.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't seen him play in college. I didn't know. Then people started talking about it, so then I watched and paid attention. Like, oh, he can work. But to me, it came off as more of a possible replacement of Ben.
It was Ben Simmons' point guard insurance.
Yes.
So they weren't totally sure. I could see at the time there was like, well, if we get Fultz, we have the guy who can, let's say Ben starts to phase away from point guard, a guy who can be our point guard. But when Ben takes the ball up, it's a guy who can play on the side. But that all went to shit because Fultz's shot, he got the hitch and all that stuff happened. So, but he was shooting, I believe, 40% from three in Washington that year. So he had a 3-point shot. He just came and all that stuff happened, and just unfortunate. But imagine a guy like, Maxi's sort of like, a Fultz as far as handling it sometimes, not as good of a distributor, but a good shooter. Maxi and Ben would have worked out pretty good, I think. Like Maxi now and what Ben was, that would have been a great mix, actually. So imagine having those two guys and Tatum and Embiid. And then that's crazy. What a great mix of offensive defense. But second for me was the Bridges trade, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to ask how high do you have that one?
Yeah, but did you feel that way when it happened?
I was happy when we drafted it.
I'm saying I don't think anybody would have thought the way Bridges has turned out. No one talked about that when it happened. They just talked about, Mikhail's mom, who worked for the Sixers, and how he was from Philly, and how that was wrong that they drafted him and traded him. Yes. No one talked about him helping the Sixers.
Mm.
That wasn't a topic of conversation. Now, he went and developed himself and became the player that he is in Phoenix, and now everybody's like, oh, we should have kept him. I don't know if he would have been that guy in Philly.
Maybe not.
We really don't know.
He got a lot of minutes with Phoenix to develop. And
he got a lot of minutes in a specific role, playing with certain guys, playing a certain way. As we've seen, he in Phoenix, he was a spot-up shooter, make shot, but he did that in college. He could make shots and defend. That's how everybody's seen him, 3 and D. But they also had a slashing, driving offense, and they don't have that in Philly.
Yeah, he would have been a corner shooter for us.
That's what I'm saying. Like, he would have been effective, but I actually think it worked out better for him going to Phoenix.
Yep. Yeah. So under the scope of what he is now, yes, I would rather have, the Bridges obviously would have been great, but no, at the time it was, devastating for the whole Philly side of that story, but not for the basketball side, because Zaire still think he fit well enough. It didn't look like it was a bad trade at the time.
Yeah, it's one of those things on draft night when you read up on the player, like, hey, I like this guy. No, I like this is a good move for us.
Athletic defender. They both defend. I mean, he can develop a good 3-point shot. Okay, sure.
Yeah. But as you know, as we always say, 3 and D, it's a premium in this league. And a lengthy wing like that. I
know. Yeah.
We've been searching ever since.
Yeah.
So our next topic, so there was a listener from our last show, iKicks76, who wanted to ask Eric a question about James Harden. So I'm going to read his full comment to you, Eric. Okay. Can Eric elaborate on a player's perspective for showing up 2 games and disappeared for the most important ones in the playoffs? I assume he's referring to the Boston series. What was that specific NBA player thinking during a playoff series, or was the other team just too good?
Is he talking about the team thinking or an individual as he's playing?
I think he's talking about Harden.
More individual, or he's talking about Harden?
Talking about Harden, I
Harden,
believe.
yeah.
I mean, it's tough. I mean, it's tough. Not tough to kind of answer. It's tough to kind of firmly know in particular with James, because I'll be honest with you, it's guys that are involved in the NBA that have told me that they are adamant about that the reason James struggles late in the season is because of his lifestyle. Like, they're firm on that. And I've always said to them, hey, I know tons of guys that had unhealthy lifestyles, and they were some of the top players that ever played in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's hard for me to just pinpoint that one thing. So I do feel it's more mental than we think. If a guy's having success and then all of a sudden you get to the playoffs and historically you started your playoff run and it didn't go well, then all of a sudden that triggers, that comes back. So I'll give you an example with me. I struggled with free throws early in my college career. And I never realized where it came from until I got a little older in college. And it came from me missing 2 free throws my last high school game, and we lost by 1 point on the buzzer beater.
Oh,
brutal.
So I never, you know what I'm saying? Like, I never put it together. But when I was put in the position to make the free throw in practice, I did it. But in the game, it was just like I didn't have the confidence. My rhythm was off. My stroke, everything. I couldn't do anything consistently. So I do believe that you got these guys that are really talented, really good, but you get into a situation where you've not had the success, and the pressure seeps in. I just do think that sometimes you never know how people handle it. I think that some people shy away from it. Some people just kind of can play through it. I think from James' standpoint, I don't think he shies away from it, but I do think he gets hesitant. And I think that with his game, if there's some hesitation in his game, you'll see inconsistency. And I think that's what you get. I would think it's more that than his lifestyle or anything like that. I do think he has some hesitation where he's not as aggressive as he is during the season, especially like when he was in Houston. You would see him not take as many shots or pass up shots, like things that he like uncharacteristically was doing in the playoffs that he didn't do in the regular season. Mm-hmm. Like, where'd that come from? So I do think that it was something maybe in his career where the lack of success, and it could have been something that was younger. We don't know. That when that time comes, you know, it just makes him a little more hesitant. And I think the hesitation hinders his consistency.
Plus, he's had it's not new. He's had a lifetime.
That's why I say if you look historically, this
great games and really bad games.
It's historically, it's been, you know, sort of, and I've seen games with James that it was going well, and then the fourth quarters it just drops off.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's, you don't know. I like I said, I had guys they're like firm. When I say firm, they're firm that it's his lifestyle.
And it catches up in the playoffs?
Yes. Firm. Like, no changing of the mind. Firm. It's his lifestyle. He's hanging out, this and that. You're getting, now all of a sudden, you know, and I do know in the playoffs, scouting is totally different. It's no back-to-backs. You're playing a team, you know, 4 to 7 times, so they can key into your weaknesses a little more. They can game plan a little more. I do think that James was a really hard player when he was playing at that high rate. He was a really hard player to game plan for one game. So I do think, and
reffing's caught up.
That's what I'm saying. I do think that the one game, you may not even talk about. They probably won't even talk about how they're defending James until shoot around. Whereas now you go into the playoffs and you have a week or so before you play a team and you can dissect it all and game plan and play it differently. So I do think that has something to do with it. Like the style of play, to me, makes him he can put up numbers and he can dominate, but it also makes it easier for defense to game plan against him because he's always with the ball out top. That's the easiest guy for every defender to see. So everybody knows where he's at. So everybody can lock into where they need to be, in the position they need to be, where the double's coming from, where the rotation's coming from, and it's in front of everybody and everybody can see it. Versus the guy that's coming from behind the defense, and by the time he catches and you looked, he's probably already done caught it and went into his move. That's different. That's what makes Steph Curry so, because you don't know where he's at. And by the time you catch it, he's either shooting or he's moving because he's constant movement without the ball. But now with James, he has the ball up top, so it's easier for defense to sit in. That could be another reason too. So basically, I don't know, but I'm giving you.
Well, you did a good job answering it.
A couple intriguing, possible ideas.
I also think too, he may have understated in the question. Like he said, he showed up in those two games. He did more than show up. I mean, those are two like career top 10 playoff performances for Harden. Like he had amazing games where he was just on. Like James couldn't miss.
Yes.
In some of those games, like in the fourth quarter, he was showing up. He was just on, right? So I don't think he is it's not just showing up for him. For me, showing up is just doing your season average. Giving me 21 and 11. That would be showing up. But he wasn't even doing that when he wasn't on. He was doing like incredibly inefficient, poor shooting.
Yeah, but that's the thing about it is like when you are on his level and where you were at James' level, I may say, it's needed for them to win, for him to stay at that level.
The high level or the 21 and 11?
The high level.
Okay.
It was needed because that's the amount of volume and percentages that he has the ball. It was needed in order for them to succeed. Now you can get away with, James was 20 and 11 or whatever, 19 and 11, whatever. You can get away with him being 15 and 12 or 15 and 13 and win. Because it goes through Joel.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. Some of it is him being the guy versus not being the guy. Like so now I tend to give James more slack now than I would Joel. But I've always said, if you think back to the last couple of years, I've always said with James, as long as James has been a Sixer, I've always said it's the timely plays and it's the timely taking over that we'll need.
Yes. Like he could have had a bad game in game 6, but if he showed up in quarter 3 or 4, we might have won that game, even if he had a bad game.
It's the timely plays, timely possessions, timely shots.
Plus, it's unfair for him that Embiid's struggles also magnify his struggles, because then we're like, all right, James, we need you.
As I said, but you looked at his history also, so it's like,
yes,
oh, here we go again, James. You know what I'm saying? So some of it, and I'm like, look, man, if AI didn't play well, if AI didn't shoot well, we got to figure out a way to win. You know what I'm saying? Like, we still got to win the game.
Yeah.
That's what everybody else got to do their part. So if Joel don't play well, everybody else got to do their part. But if AI didn't play well with us, it wasn't like one guy's getting more to heat. It was collective a little more. You know what I'm saying? Whereas now, if Joel don't do his part, it's
all eyes on James.
James, or especially with Teja, Tobias make too much money. You know what I'm saying? Like we move it from one.
Tobias did have I think he had bad games 6 and 7.
But we're moving from one person to another instead of collectively.
Yeah.
Collectively, we'll eventually get to collectively, but that's not, choice 1, 2, or 3.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially when you trade for a guy, you bring him in to be like, okay, you're the guy we need if he doesn't do his job right.
Well, I mean, and then Doc would get more blame than the collectively and all that too. So.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was a good question by iKick76. Okay, so our final topic here. This is a fun one. So for those of you who don't know, when Eric was growing up, Dr. J was his favorite player growing up. And he recently gave his top 10 NBA list on this YouTube channel. And Stephen A. Smith thought who also covered Eric, he thought Dr. J didn't do a good job. He missed some names on his top 10 list. So I'm going to read you off Dr. J's top 10 players of all time, and I want to see if you think the list is you're fine with the list, or if you think there should be some guys he should be replacing some names with. So his list was Jerry West, Oscar Robertson, Elgin Baylor, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Michael Jordan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, Karl Malone, and Tiny Archibald.
No order.
Yeah, no, he didn't have an order to it. He just said it.
I mean, but it's whose list is it?
It's Dr. J's.
So why is it a problem? That's his list. I don't understand. Like, am I supposed to what am I supposed to do?
For example, Stephen A. Smith.
What's wrong with his list?
Yeah, because Stephen A. Smith said that the thing that he thought was wrong. He said LeBron should be on this list, and he's not on the list. He said Tim Duncan should be
his list.
Like, people want him to do better, Eric.
Yeah, but Dr. J played in the NBA for a long time, and he played, and that's his list. Look, I'll put it like this. I'll be controversial. I was surprised Larry Bird wasn't on there.
I thought the same thing.
Now, when I looked at Doc's list, that's the only thing that came to my mind. Like, dang, he didn't put Bird on there.
I was going over guys.
It came to I didn't even think, to me, LeBron and all those other guys. I mean, we all know LeBron just need to be on everybody's top 10 list. We know that. But all I'm saying is it doesn't surprise me for a lot of the older guys to not include younger guys. That doesn't surprise me. Shaq's not on there. It's, you know what I'm saying? That does not surprise me when they don't include those guys.
Well, he did say, Eric, in the interview, I didn't watch the whole interview, but parts of it, he said he's only including in this list, it was only retired guys. So that makes sense why Curry, Durant, LeBron weren't on there.
But Kobe should have been there.
That's one. That's another name. Yeah.
I'm saying, I would say, if he said retired players, then, Kobe should be on. But Bird, I mean, it's a lot of people that
Bird really stuck out to me, though.
That's when I looked at the list, that was the only name that stuck. Dude, he didn't include Bird. I said, oh, that's personal. That's what I thought.
You got pictures of them choking each other, so yeah.
But, it's interesting because a lot of people don't know about Tiny, but when I talk about a lot of the older guys, they Tiny was a monster. So yeah. So now we're supposed to just tell Doc what his list is supposed to be.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I mean, these young guys come out now, their list is not going to include Oscar Robertson. I mean, Doc didn't even include himself.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, these younger guys coming out aren't including Doc and Bill Russell and Jerry West, and they're not including those guys. So why does an older guy have to include all the younger guys? I don't get it. That's why these lists don't make sense.
Yeah. I would say names that stuck out to me were Bird, Duncan, Shaq, Kobe, Isaiah, and probably the next one would be Dirk.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is his list is good. His list is most guys that are worthy. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's not so you put those guys on, who are you taking off?
I would take off.
Oh, you know it. Look at Elgin Baylor's numbers.
I would take off Tiny and probably Malone next.
Karl Malone, who finished his career the second scorer in the league.
Or Tim Duncan. I'm not just taking him off for anybody.
I'm just saying. Why can't they both be on there?
Duncan delivered some rings, man. Malone still.
Oh, so now it's rings. Which one is it, man? Is it individuals or rings?
Combination.
Yeah. All right, man.
That was Stephen A's big one was Tim Duncan instead of Karl Malone because of rings. That was his one that he.
I could say Shaq too instead of Duncan.
So Bill Russell instead of Wilt Chamberlain. Kobe Bryant over Jerry West?
Yes.
I'm just saying we're talking about rings.
Yeah. You could do that. You could do Jerry West would be up there too.
I'm just
On most people's consensus lists, Tiny would be the lowest guy I've seen.
Yeah.
But all the other guys are like top 25 on everybody's list. So I don't think there's anything really, really wrong with everyone else. Tiny's the one that kind of stuck out to me, but everyone else is like consensus top 20, 25. Jerry West is usually in people's teens. Karl Malone's usually in people's teens. You know what I mean? Like every other guy on there, Baylor's around like 19 or 20 on most people's list. So it's pretty. I mean, they're all highly touted guys. I don't think there's much.
That's my point. So why are we talking
wrong.
about this?
He said something on in his interview that was not controversial, but the interviewee was younger, so maybe she didn't know much about Oscar Robertson. But he said Oscar Robertson would be a top player in today's game. Would you agree with that?
I don't know enough about Oscar. I do know that he was really good. I do know the numbers that he put up. He was my dad's favorite player. And the one thing I do know is his size. He is not a small guy at all. So I do believe with his size and his ability to play that he could have been a what's considered a big point guard. So I'm not going to get into what he would have done today, because you can do that. You can argue that and debate that all day.
Yeah.
But I do know that his, what he's done, what he did, is going to go down in history as one of the best careers ever. So let's leave it at that.
But your top 10 would be different, right?
What top 10?
Your top 10 of retired players of all time.
Yeah, I'm sure it'd be different if I really thought. Yeah, I mean, it would be different because I would include, some guys that I watched. I wouldn't necessarily include. That's what I'm saying. That's why I know it's tough, because if I was to think of 10 guys that retired, most likely I'm naming 10 guys that I seen play or I played against or that were playing now. You know what I'm saying? Like of course I can include Wilt and Bill Russell, and I didn't see them play.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just picking them just to pick them.
Right.
Because they deserve it. But that wouldn't necessarily be my top 10 because I've never seen them play. So
you wouldn't put Wilt or Bill Russell in your top 10?
It depends on what kind of top 10 are we stating. Am I stating guys that I've seen play?
Yeah.
Or are we just stating the top 10 in historical figures?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You'd have to stipulate that, like top 10 guys that I watched or I played against, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or top 10 historical figures.
Yeah.
I mean, and then if we're going top 10 historical figures, how can you ever say someone's top 10 is wrong?
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you all 10 of those belong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Are all these guys?
You're trying to get me to say a list, but it's not happening.
Are all these guys in the top 75? All these guys?
Yeah.
All of them? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I said, everyone but Tiny is top like 25. So,
I mean, yeah, but if you ask a lot of older guys that played against Tiny, they'll tell you differently.
Yeah. Well, that goes into the whole competitive rankings for people that played against them.
He was the first guy to lead the league, I think besides Wilt, maybe to lead the league in assists and points.
Oh, wow.
First guard.
Yeah.
Now, speaking from age here, it was Tiny. Was Tiny a tiny guy? Was that his actual name or was that his nickname?
Nate.
Okay.
I don't know why he's called Tiny, because he's not tiny.
Oh, he's not tiny. Oh,
almost my height. Yeah.
Oh.
About 6'1", 6'2".
Interesting. Okay. Probably some story there.
I don't even think my list would be that much different. I think I did one just for the hell of it. I think I put instead of Elgin, instead of Jerry West, Tiny, and Malone, I put in Bird, Hakeem, Duncan, and Shaq. So it's not like that. It's not that crazy. It was tough though, because with Kobe and Dr. J that was hard for me between those 6.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
I mean, it's like a lot of like the former vets, and the guys who do make these lists and stuff. The guys who played. There's been so many good players in the league. Like you can't really go wrong with your top 10.
It's tough, man. It's really hard.
You can't go wrong with it.
It's really hard because if you start putting Shaq in there, then how can you not put Hakeem in there?
So
right?
I mean, why can't you?
Yeah, no, you can't. I mean, yeah, it's
I'm saying, why can't you put Shaq and not include Dream?
Head to head, because
we going head to head now.
And he won the ring. He won the ring on. It was who's the king of the court without Jordan there, right? That's what it was.
He won, and then Shaq ended up winning 4 to his team.
I mean, yeah, once Hakeem left, pretty much, right?
What are you talking about? Hakeem, that was.
Some guys had to retire for Shaq to start winning rings, is what I'm saying.
No, he didn't. Jordan came back and won 3 after Hakeem won his.
No. For Shaq to start winning rings, I'm saying.
Who had to retire?
I mean, Jordan left, Hakeem left. They're old and done.
So that's why you saying Shaq won rings?
It helped.
Oh. So Magic Johnson had to retire for Jordan to start winning rings.
I think he had to start to decline a little bit. Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh. That's a horrible take.
They even said in the Dream Team documentary, they saw the Dream Team as a passing of the torch from Magic to
That's just from their team and that guy becoming a better player, but that's not why you win a championship. You just win a championship because you're just getting better. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's all it is. It's not about a guy decreasing. It's just like a guy getting better, and his team is getting better. They made the right moves. They got better. But it wasn't like Shaq was bad when Dream beat him.
No. I'm not saying it was at all. No. Not at all. But he couldn't completely dominate without him,
And Shaq has said that publicly.
Yeah.
He had my number.
Yeah.
And they played the one series.
Well, then that goes with my argument with if you're going to put one, you kind of got to put the other.
They played one series.
Yeah.
I mean, just saying, like, Houston beat the Knicks the year before, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Game 7 down there. But nobody ever says Dream dominated Patrick Ewing.
Yeah.
You never hear that. You hear about Ewing in the Knicks not beating the Bulls. But you never hear him about anything about that.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe it's more of a story to say Shaq got beat by Hakeem because everyone kind of already.
Well, I mean, it was how they lost. They got swept.
Yeah.
I believe they got swept, right? Or maybe one game or 5-4-1 or something.
I have to look.
Whereas the Knicks went to Game 7.
I have it here. Rockets. Yeah, they swept them. Yeah, that's a whipping.
How old was Elijah on?
Elijah almost put up numbers too, man. Let me tell you what. 31, 34, 31, 35. Woo!
And Shaq was a young guy, and Elijah was an older vet at that point. Though you really can't compare the
third or fourth year.
Shaq was probably around.
He was drafted in 92, and that was 95.
22, 23.
Yeah.
And Elijah was like 10 years old in him at that point? More than that, probably?
Dream came out in 83, 84? 1,
2, 3.
33, 34, 30, something like 32. 33.
So you Teja going head to head on that one. That's can't really compare the two. It's like trying to it's like trying to compare Brady and Mahomes right now.
He wasn't a rookie. I mean, come on now.
I don't know, man. we're gonna leave it at that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, like I said, you can make up that. You can change the goalposts all you want. most people, when they're making their list, will pick Shaq over Dream.
Yeah, they do. I would have him higher too.
I'm just saying that's what most people would do.
Yeah, I mean, he won a lot of rings.
Yeah,
and with multiple teams, that means something.
Yeah. All right, fellas. Well, that does it for us. We hope you guys enjoyed this unique 76ers episode, talking lists, talking, getting the fan questions and stuff. Next week, I Bleav, I don't know if the schedule's dropping soon. I know the preseason schedule came out today, so I'm assuming we're getting closer to the NBA schedule dropping for next year soon.
Look forward to it.
Yeah, looking forward to that. So, all right, guys. We hope you guys have a good weekend, and we'll see you guys next week.